Let me ask you something uncomfortable. Have you ever looked at someone older than you, maybe a relative, a colleague, or even just someone you know and quietly thought to yourself, how did they mess this up? Not in a judgmental way, but in a genuinely confused way. Because when you look at their life, it doesn't quite add up. They had more time than you, more opportunities. In many cases, they even had more money. And yet somehow, they still ended up stressed, stuck, or financially insecure. And if you're honest, it feels strange. Because from the outside, it looks like they should have been ahead. They should have figured it out. They should have done better. But here's the part that most people don't think about. One day, someone younger than you is going to look at your life the exact same way. They're going to look at your choices, your lifestyle, your financial situation, and wonder how you got it wrong. Not because you're careless, not because you're irresponsible, and not because you didn't try, but because you might be making a mistake right now. That feels like you're doing everything right, and that's what makes it dangerous. Because this isn't the kind of mistake that looks like a mistake. It doesn't feel like failure. It doesn't feel like a bad decision. In fact, it feels logical. It feels normal. It feels like progress, and yet, it quietly leads people into the same place. Over and over again. What's even more surprising is that this isn't a new problem. It's not something unique to your situation or your generation. In fact, every generation before you has made this exact same mistake. Not a similar mistake. Not a slightly different version. The exact same one. The only difference is, it looks different every time, and once you see it clearly, you'll realize something uncomfortable, but powerful. The definition of success keeps changing, but the mistake behind it never does. Here's how it works. Every generation grows up with a certain idea of what success looks like. But they don't sit down and logically design that idea. They don't analyze it deeply, or question whether it truly makes sense. They absorb it. They absorb it from their parents, from society, from what people praise, from what people post online, from what gets attention, respect, and validation. And once that idea gets planted in your mind, it becomes your default direction. You don't question it, you chase it, because it feels normal. It feels logical. It feels like the next step you're supposed to take. But here's the truth that almost nobody says out loud. Even though the definition of success keeps changing from one generation to another, the underlying mistake stays exactly the same. It just changes its appearance. Let me show you what I mean. Think about someone like Daniel. Daniel is 65 years old. He spent most of his life doing what people would consider responsible. He worked a stable job for over 3 decades. He showed up consistently. He paid his bills on time. He avoided risky decisions. He followed the path that was considered safe and smart. In his early 30s, Daniel made one of the biggest financial decisions of his life. He bought a house. Not just any house, the biggest one the bank was willing to approve for him. And at the time, that decision made perfect sense. Because back then, owning a big house wasn't just about having a place to live. It was a symbol. It represented stability. It represented success. It showed that you had made it, so Daniel committed. He took on a large mortgage. He spent years making payments. And over time, he invested even more into that house, renovating it, upgrading it, improving it. From the outside, everything looked great. His life looked successful. It looked stable. It looked like everything was working. But now, decades later, the situation feels different. Daniel is 65, and most of his wealth is tied up in that house. On paper, he might look wealthy. But in reality, he doesn't have enough liquid cash. His retirement feels tight. And the idea of downsizing feels emotionally difficult. Almost impossible. Because that house is no longer just a financial decision. It's part of who he is. And that's where things went wrong. The house itself wasn't the mistake. The mistake was believing that the house was the plan. Now let's look at a different situation. Meet Sarah. Sarah is 45. She's intelligent, hardworking, and successful in her career. Over the years, she has consistently moved forward. She earned promotions, received raises, and gradually increased her income. From a financial perspective, she did everything right. But something else happened along the way. Every time Sarah's income increased, Her lifestyle increased with it. Not dramatically. Not irresponsibly. Just gradually. A better apartment. A nicer car. More frequent vacations. Slightly more expensive habits. Each change felt small. Each decision felt justified. Each upgrade felt earned. And that's exactly why it's so easy to miss what's happening. Because Sarah didn't make one big mistake. She made dozens of small ones. That all looked completely reasonable today. Sarah earns more than she ever has before. But when she looks at her financial position, something doesn't feel right. Her savings haven't grown the way they should have. Her investments aren't as strong as they could be. And despite her high income, she doesn't feel as financially secure as she expected to feel by this stage of her life. Because every time she earned more, she spent more. Her income increased, but the gap between what she earned and what she kept never really expanded. And that's the hidden problem. She built a better lifestyle, but not a stronger foundation. Now, let's look at someone from a younger generation. Meet Amir. Amir is 32. And his reality is very different from Daniel's or Sarah's. By the time Amir entered adulthood, the world had changed. Housing became more expensive. Job security became less predictable. The traditional path to success started to feel less accessible, so instead of chasing the same goals as previous generations, Amir adapted. He focused on something else. Experiences, travel, food, memories, living in the moment, and honestly, his decision makes sense. Because when the future feels uncertain, people naturally start prioritizing the present, and culture reinforces this mindset. You hear phrases like, enjoy life, don't wait, and experiences matter more than things. So Amir follows that path. He lives well. He creates meaningful memories. He enjoys his life, but there's another side to the story. At 32, Amir's investments are minimal. His savings are inconsistent. And somewhere in the background, there's a quiet sense of anxiety about the future. It's not overwhelming, but it's there, and instead of confronting it, he stays focused on the present. Again, the experiences themselves aren't the problem. The problem is what they replaced. Long-term building. Now let's look at the newest version of this pattern. Meet Lina. Lina is 23. And on the surface, she seems the most financially aware out of everyone. She understands investing. She consumes financial content. She knows the importance of saving and building wealth, and she actually takes action. She invests regularly, even if it's a small amount. But Lina also lives in a world that no previous generation has experienced in the same way. A world driven by visibility in her environment. Success isn't just about having money, it's about how that success looks. Her lifestyle, her setup, her aesthetic, her choices, they all communicate something. They send a signal. They say, I'm doing well. And without realizing it, Lina starts balancing two things at the same time. She invests, but she also spends consistently to maintain that image. Not excessively. Not recklessly. Just enough. And over time, something subtle happens. The image of success starts growing faster than the actual wealth behind it. This is the most modern version of the same mistake. Not ignorance. Not lack of knowledge, but performance. Now if you step back and look at all four of these situations, Daniel, Sarah, Amir, and Lina, you'll notice something important. Their lives are completely different. Their environments are different. Their challenges are different. Their decisions are different. And yet, they all ended up in the same pattern, because at the core of it, they all focused on the same thing. Not actual wealth, but the signal of wealth. And that's the real problem. There are two sides to financial success, the signal and the substance. The signal is what people can see. It's the house, the lifestyle, the experiences, the appearance of success. The substance is what actually supports your life. It's your investments, your savings, your assets, your cash flow. And the reason so many people get stuck is because signals feel real. They feel like progress. They feel like achievement. They feel like you're moving forward, but they don't create security. Only substance does. And this pattern repeats itself across generations because of something deeper, something psychological. Humans don't measure success in absolute terms, we measure it relative to the people around us. We look at others. We compare. We adjust. If everyone around you is upgrading their lifestyle, you feel pressure to do the same. If everyone is traveling, you feel like you're missing out. If everyone appears successful, you feel like you need to match that standard, even if you don't consciously think about it. It influences your decisions. And over time, this creates an invisible rule, a rule that most people follow without realizing it. Spend in a way that keeps you aligned with your environment, not ahead, not behind. Aligned. And that's the trap. Because staying aligned with appearances doesn't guarantee real progress. So the question becomes, how do you avoid this? Not by cutting everything out. Not by living an extreme or restrictive life, but by changing the order of your priorities. Most people follow this sequence. They upgrade their lifestyle first, and then think about building assets later. But people who actually build wealth reverse that order. They focus on building assets first, and then upgrade their lifestyle afterward. It's a small shift, but it changes everything. It means you don't immediately upgrade your life. When your income increases, you give your investments time to grow first. It means you don't spend just because you can. You spend after you've built something solid. It means you stop chasing the appearance of success and start building the system behind it. It's not about saying no forever. It's about saying, not yet. Because when you delay the signal, you strengthen the substance, and that's what creates real freedom over time. So now, there's only one question left. Which version of this mistake are you living right now? Are you upgrading your lifestyle faster than your savings? Are you focusing on the present while avoiding the future? Are you maintaining an image that's growing faster than your actual wealth? Or maybe it's a mix of all of them. Because for most people, it is . And that's not something to feel bad about. Because the moment you can clearly see the pattern, you're no longer controlled by it. You're aware of it, and awareness is where change begins. So take a moment and really think about it. Are you building wealth? Or are you building the appearance of it? Because that difference quietly determines your entire future. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. And that might be exactly what you needed.